Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, The Church of Failure. With me, as always, is my trusty co-host, Eric McCartney. How you doing this week, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. How are you doing?
I heard through the grapevine you got a little vacation coming up. Who approved that time off?
My boss that pays me.
Oh, well, I didn't get a memo. I feel like
Pretty sure you did.
I feel like I'm being affronted. Just to be honest.
That's a big word for this program.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, a lot of interesting things going on this week. Not as much in the news section as I thought there would be. A couple of interesting things we're going to be talking about tonight. But you got an Amazon package this week, didn't you? We both got a couple of interesting rodent related deliveries this week.
Yes, I was stoked. I was able to get issues 1 through 5 of the original print of Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters, along with issues 1 and 3 in 3D.
Very nice.
Now I need to get frames for them so I can hang them on my walls in all their splendor. If you think I'm kidding about that, I'm not.
I adjusted your audio a little bit on the OBS side, so if anybody in the chat wants to, what's going on, Cartoon? If anybody in the chat wants to let me know if he's too low or still a little bit high, let me know. I've been taking the OBS masterclass for 2018, trying to figure out how to use this fucking program. Comics, Clint from the Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters. So. Pretty excited about that. I think when he opens those back up, I'm gonna have to get the other 3 members.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
He did a great job on that. If he legitimately does these in 5 minutes or less, I am blown away by the amount of talent that man possesses. I do have a contender for the. Well, Peter Simeti's more of a publisher as far as Alterna goes. So the stuff we've liked from Alterna hasn't necessarily been his stuff. But I have no doubt that he writes very amazing things if he does write, or if he draws amazing things, which I've seen in his cards and covers. His covers are awesome. Yep. Anyway, now that we're
that sketch was awesome.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find a picture of it instead of just talking about it. I know I put it up on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, though, nice little transition there. I have a tweet that I want to talk about. This tweet is from Gilly Writes Comics, and it alludes to a certain series that he's planning on making, starring some capybaras. They are very, very large.
Capybara.
Yeah, they're semi-aquatic rodents that get about the size of a pit bull or larger. But this will be the
and they're really cool because they're just kind of chill and they just kind of hang out.
Yeah, these things apparently get huge, and I want one as a pet. But he's also planning to make them the star of his upcoming Indiegogo project, Galactic Rodents of Mayhem, which I'm pretty sure we're both going to be very interested in buying into. Gilly Writes Comics has been...
hell yes.
It's Gilbert Deltrez, I believe. He did the book, The Ballad of Dusty Tortillas. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong with that, but I believe he did The Ballad of Dusty Tortillas. In fact, I think that's what the... Oh, no, it's Pistolera. My bad. Did he not do... Who did The Ballad of Dusty Tortillas? Because I wanted to get them on as well. but I definitely want
I,
to.
I remember us talking about it. I don't remember who you said.
Yeah, but I definitely want to highlight Galactic Rodents of Mayhem. We'll be covering that book at its Indiegogo as it goes further because it goes right up the alley of what we like to talk about on this show, which is just very strange, fantastic comic books. So if you're not already following Gilly Writes Comics on Twitter, it's at Gilbert Deltrez. I'll put that in the description after the show, but you can see it up on the screen now. Go give him a follow and check out all of the projects that he's working on. Help back them. Make sure they get finished so that we can have Galactic Rodents of Mayhem. I think that's
I want to say
that's set for August to launch. So
that yeah, and that title. See, the reason I mentioned that capybaras were just kind of like a chill animal, they just kind of like to hang out and just do whatever, is because he made it Galactic Rodents of Mayhem. It's a nice little kind of oxymoron to the actual nature of a capybara.
right. Well,
Speaking of the animals of mayhem, I'm sorry, my dog decided to play with her toy for a second right next to me. I'm going to mute myself for a moment.
okay, no problem. But we we wanted to show that because it was something I saw on Twitter this week, just kind of going through comics and things that are going on. How's it going, Becky? Thanks for dropping in. I wanted to talk about Grom as a whole. I'll bring it back up in case Becky just got here. We'll take a look at that one more time.
All right, she should stop squeaking her toy right next to me now.
Okay. I mean, it was fine.
Okay.
But this is a series based on these very large rodents that really just don't give a shit about anything. I believe there's a few concept sketches for art in the timeline here. Let's see. Here we go. Sniper Viper, which is fantastic. Got the female capybara, Mayhem. But yeah, I'm excited. There's Bash. Look how swole he is. He's swole. But the more I look into this, just the more excited I get about it, and I can't wait. I can't wait for the opportunity to put my hands on this book. Monster MD, $35,000. I believe he got a spot on
Nice.
Comics Artist Pro Secrets, the Comicsgate live stream, and crushed $35,000 this week. So that means that everybody's getting the bomber patch and the tale of how Heidi became invisible. So that's Von Klaus's book, Monster MD on Indiegogo. Everybody go look that up and back it if you haven't already. It just looks great. It looks ridiculous. There's a set of lungs smoking a cigarette in it. I mean, what more do you want, really?
And the invisible nurse named Heidi.
Yes. We get the story of how Heidi became hidden. So that should be fantastic as well. And Becky, real quick, while we've got you in the chat, how does Ayrton sound coming through the audio? I adjusted it a little bit when I got him on the show because he was peaking a little too high, but I can't have him outshining me. He already does so, even with his terrible gimmick.
I'm sorry. I get excited when we talk about ridiculous rodent comics.
Cartoon in the chat has a question. He says, what do you guys think on comics that change up historical events? If you don't mind a small tangent. I made a silly comic back in college and was thinking about redoing it. I don't know. You wanna talk about that? There's been a couple of examples of it.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, if he's talking like in the historical fiction sort of realm, I mean, we have what was it in Umbrella Academy? They went back and kind of messed with the
The Kennedy
the
assassination.
JFK assassination.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it really just depends on how it's done and how exactly you're changing it. I mean, Wolverine they've inserted into historical events
Oh yeah,
too.
Wolverine single-handedly the reason
So
why we won World War II.
yeah, basically,
He was everywhere
Lucky
at one
Jim, as they
time.
called him back in the. Yep, he
Watchmen
was
did it with
in. He was
what?
in.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I
No.
was going to say he was in Nagasaki as well as Normandy.
Yeah. Yeah. Watchmen also did it. Doctor Manhattan was in Vietnam and ended the Vietnam conflict a lot earlier. We actually won Vietnam. I think as long as historical changes are done well, and they're not too, I don't know, they're not too egregious, like they're not just too biased. I don't really see a problem with it. I would love
Yeah,
to see
or
whatever.
as long as it's
Go up.
as long as it's done in service of like the narrative of the story. If you're just doing it just to do it, like if they wrote a comic making the first president a woman instead of George Washington just to do it, that would annoy me. But if they were to do it with some service of an actual narrative going along, then sure.
Yeah,
Would be like the absurd example off the top of my head.
I'm with that. All right. But yeah, whatever you did in the past cartoon, if you redo it, I'd love to see it. We'll even put it up on the
Oh,
screen
me
here
too.
and check it out. But I hope that answers your question. If not, feel free to clarify. A couple of more things to talk about before we get to our reviews this week. Um, First thing, DC's doing a lot this particular quarter, I guess you would say.
Way.
Not last week they ended Vertigo, and then immediately announced a bunch of new books and a new imprint and a new rating system and new titles. I mean, it's just all over the place. I don't know. I don't know if this is good or bad. It's different, which is something.
Yeah, that's our take. It's something.
Right. I mean, it is something, right? This particular first thing we're going to talk about, we've got two DC stories this week, so I apologize in advance. But DC Comics unveils new fantasy comic book called The Last.
Shells.
What?
I said this just proves that we're not Marvel shills.
Right. DC unveils new fantasy comic book, The Last God. There's the cover there. The cover looks interesting.
That's cool. Yeah.
12-issue series described as appealing to fans of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. After launching of a creator-owned horror comics wasn't enough, which we'll be talking about in just a few minutes, uh, wasn't enough sign that DC is committed to genre diversity in the wake of closing its Vertigo imprint. The company has announced a new fantasy series to launch in October titled The Last God. 12-issue
Sounds
series.
like it'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, well, atheist church here and whatnot. A 12-issue series by Philip Kennedy. I'm not familiar with his work. Philip Kennedy Johnson and Riccardo Federici, I guess. Sorry if I just butchered your name,
It
guy.
looks right.
And Dean White. The Last God is described by the publisher as cross-generational quest to kill the evil tyrant Maul Ultep before he destroys the world of Cain Anun, where the series is set. Unfortunately, the task is not as simple as it might initially seem. So right off the bat, they're saying that it'll appeal to people that like Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, which means, I mean, later on they go on to reference Magic the Gathering in the next article, um, or in the next paragraph, but and D&D. It doesn't. Like, I don't know. I hate when they name drop. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna get that it's fan. Like,
Yeah.
I read a comic this week
I
that
mean,
we're
look at
gonna
the.
talk. What? Look at the cover.
I'm. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's going to be in that vein,
Right.
just by the cover.
Well, I mean,
But
yeah. I get the sense of a Nazgul dragon looking at the cover now. Now it's not something cool. It looks like I'm gonna take these two bad things and put them together. So immediately you've done yourself a disservice. Like, you're immediately just discounting everybody who looked at Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and said, "Well, that was too long and drawn out. I like my fantasy, quicker and more concise." Which nobody says that, but still, like, there are people with bad taste in their mouth from both of those franchises. I mean, the the Hobbit should not have been a 3-movie series. I I agree. I
over describing of things in his books.
want to repeat that so people in the audience might actually hear you. That'd be great.
Yeah. I said in Tolkien needed to tone it down on the over describing of things in his books.
Oh, yeah. Set in 2 different generations, it follows the mighty Fellowship of Heroes. Fellowship of Heroes, alright. It travels beyond the borders of creation to kill a god. And the next generation, who learn their predecessors aren't the heroes the world believes them to be. Now, that premise I can get behind. That split screen where you have the gallivanting heroes that are telling the story of their triumphant, battle against a god, and then their predecessors who are just like, nah, these motherfuckers were criminals. They just stole a bunch of shit and killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Johnson said in the statement, adding, "Fans of D&D, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and Magic the Gathering, and anyone who enjoys deep dives into fantasy lore, you will be extremely well served with The Last God." Well, sir, I will be the judge of that, as I like all of those things. DC publisher Dan DiDio chimed in his own words statement, stating that the new series enforces DC's commitment to working with the best storytellers, as well as the commitment to finding new and original concepts to publish. Now listen here, we're gonna get the best storytellers. It's gonna be tremendous. It's gonna be huge. We're gonna have the best words on the best paper for the best books. You don't understand. Fucking channeling Trump there. The Last God is aimed at readers 17 and older and will debut digitally and in comic book stores October 30th, ladies and gentlemen. So, around Halloween, which is fitting considering what the next DC topic's going to be there. Let's talk about that for a second, though. The Last God. What do you think about that? What do you think of the changes DC is making as a total? Like getting rid of Vertigo.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'd be what spurred all these changes.
Man, we got to get you we got to get you a new gimmick. This audio shit ain't working.
God damn it!
Hey,
I don't have a dumb joke prepared for tonight for me to come through clearly on.
I know, right? Like, come on. But no, what were you saying? Go ahead.
So I'm curious about what their motives are behind all these changes. Is it because of the box office stuff, like them just failing at that, so they decided to kind of see if they can do something more on the publishing front, or what's exactly the motivation behind it?
No, man, it's just time. DC revamps and reskins and recolors every few years now. It's just their thing. We had 52, then we had New 52, and then we had Rebirth, and now we have DC, just DC proper. And now everything getting stripped from Vertigo, and we're getting this new age ranking that's very similar to Alterna, where you have very distinct titles for every age group. You got DC Black Label, DC Proper, which is more teens, and then you've got the DC Kids label.
Yeah, I'd still be interested, like this specific change, what the reasoning is behind it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think personally that it's just time to shake things up at the company. They do this so often. I think they looked at their quarterly reports and they said, damn, we have this whole imprint that we're putting money into that's not making us any. Maybe we should chop it off and do something different, shake things up, try and get some sales going, because we don't have Disney protecting our ass and we don't want to sell to them.
Could you imagine?
Oh, yeah. Superman, Spider-Man team-ups would be the only comics in stores. Batman and
But
Wolverine
you might get a
would
Spider-Man, Superman.
No, because Disney would pick DC because the letter is the same.
All right, good point.
I don't know. I was just fucking out with that.
They would do some dumb shit like that.
Now, speaking of which, I've heard some really, really bad things have been going on as far as DC Comics. I feel like they're finally starting to get to the brunt of the SJW creator issues that Marvel's been dealing with.
Yeah, I think that could be part of it too. But going back to like my box office point, like, okay, we can't do anything here, but let's try and bring in these crazy new ideas and at least beat them at something right now. And they might be able to do that in the comic book vein. What little of that there actually is these days.
It feels like to me that a lot of comic books are created specifically to pitch TV series these days, and I think DC's always avoided that market, and I think now they're starting to try and get their feet wet a little bit with it. Also, you know what? Just a brief tangent here. What the hell? What the fuck? For some reason, it just disconnected for a minute.
Huh?
Jesus Christ.
Weird.
Yeah. Poor connection. Go fuck yourself.
What the shit?
Yeah, I hate everything. I'm hardwired in. I don't know. It just hates you. I think it hates you specifically. I never have these problems when I'm doing anything else. I think my internet
That's
just
possible.
has a sense of you being a bad person. Everything
kind of like how a dog senses whether you're a bad person.
Right. My internet is a Great Dane or a capybara. But I just want to point something out. The backdrop is changed. Does anybody see the change? Does anybody notice the difference in the backdrop? I mean,
shit. Well, I mean, you're not screen sharing with me, so I can't see it.
Oh, because you're not watching the damn show. Let's see how it is. We need all the views.
Do you want my connection? Do you want my connection to go down more? Because I mean, I'll pull it up.
I'm gonna give everybody a minute to catch up. But yeah, if anybody sees the difference in the backdrop, go ahead and put it in the chat. You should really get
that.
this.
And hold on, I'm pulling it up.
No, I got the screen share. I set up the screen share.
God, Skype's a bastard. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, it hates you. I told you. Yeah. Now let's see if anybody can tell. All right. Danielle Griffith got it first off. They added the ponytail on there. You finally have all your hair again.
Finally.
It only took 3 months in the I've had the art since day one. I just didn't feel like changing it.
Yeah. Thanks, by the way, Denny. I appreciate the add-on.
But anyway, moving on. We've talked about a couple of comic series on this show. Right, mainly the main one that we've done with Mr. Deadman and Becky specifically was Lock and Key, right? And that was
Oh
by
yes, one of my favorites.
yeah, that was by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. We talked about that with Becky and Mr. Deadman, and at the end there, SK. Um, well, DC apparently is giving Joe Hill his own imprint. They are launching an imprint for
Which
for horror comics called Hill House. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm super fascinated by this.
Well, horror comics, man. I one of the books I picked up was just horror comics #1, and that was a very strange comic book. For anybody interested, I'll give you the elevator pitch. Ice Cream Man essentially cuts people up into tiny little pieces and makes ice cream out of them, and that's the premise of the whole book.
Sounds right up Becky's alley.
It reminds me of a Spawn miniseries with Billy Kincaid, the Ice Cream Man butcher. Um, but that's just me. Anyway, let's take a look at Hill House. Hill House Comics will consist of 5 miniseries and debut this October. Huh. A lot of things are debuting this October for DC. Seems like right before the last quarter of the year, they want to get some shit out. Maybe look good to Warner Brothers so Warner Brothers doesn't put them up on the fucking chopping block.
Yeah, it doesn't sell them to Disney.
Just days after announcing the closure, and that's purely speculation, projection, whatever. I'm not. I have no inside knowledge. I have no knowledge whatsoever that DC is in any danger whatsoever. But anyway, just days following the announcement just days after announcing the closure of DC's Vertigo imprint, DC is signaling that it hasn't moved away from creator-owned comic book material. The publisher has announced a new pop-up imprint, which that name just scares the shit out of me. Hill House Comics, curated by horror author Joe Hill. The line of 5 original miniseries, each one targeting to readers 17 and older. So, again, we're going against my ethos that comic companies aren't doing well because they're not capturing children. So what do? They create 6 books to launch in October that are all targeted towards adults. Fantastic. That's intelligent.
I mean, can you really target horror comics towards children?
No, but you can, promote the fact that you're putting out a $2 line of children's comics on newsprint and following the alternative path to glory. But no, we're gonna inch closer and closer to Zenoscope. How much full frontal male nudity can I expect in these comics, DC? I've already seen Batman's dick. Where's everybody else's? Anyway, targeted towards 17 and older. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's it. That was a quick rant.
I've got more. I just haven't finished the article.
Okay.
Oh, God. The miniseries will feature 2 titles written by the Fireman and Heart-Shaped Box author himself. No mention of Lock and Key because that belongs to IDW still. And all 5 titles, including a secondary strip, Sea Dogs, also written by him. So that tells me that you're going to have to buy all 5 of these books to get that Sea Dogs story, which is kind of smart. Other titles will be written by the Girl with All the Gifts author Mike Carey, playwright and The Good Fight screenwriter Laura Mark, and critically acclaimed short story writer and essayist Carmen Maria Machado. Artists for the line include Sandman veteran Kelly Jones as well as the Unwritten's Peter Gross. Now, I'm curious.
Hmm.
I know Becky's in the chat. Do any of those names mean anything to you? Because aside from the Sandman author or the Sandman artist, I didn't really know who the hell any of these people were. So I'm wondering if Joe Hill is the main draw and the other guys are small potatoes, or are the other guys like known in the horror community, or what are they doing here? Does this seem like something that's good? Does this seem like something that might fall flat? Do you think this is a big waste of money with the current market of comic books, or do you think these are all like scripts for TV shows?
I have a feeling they're going to be TV shows at some point.
I bet these are. It could very well be 5 pitches because aren't two of his creations at this point becoming TV shows? We know Lock and Key is greenlit, and I think Nosferatu is also greenlit. I think that might be a novel of his.
Okay. I don't know,
So,
but looking forward in the article, it definitely seems like that might be what they're going for.
well, let's just check it out.
Yeah.
In a statement about the new line, Hill said, "Anyone paying attention knows that we're in the middle of a new golden age of horror. Films like Get Out, Hereditary, It Follows, and plain old It have raised the bar higher and higher. Meanwhile, ongoing shows like The Terror and Netflix's Stranger Things have shattered preconceived notions of what is possible in episodic terror TV. The great stuff happening in comics, of course, in a field of unbound creativity and wacko visionaries. There is great stuff happening, but greedy me wants more. Bringing horror to the forefront of our publishing plan has been a huge initiative for DC and a passion project of mine," said Mark Doyle, DC executive editor. So, yeah, you could very well be right. This very well could be something that was just brought on to try and have some more fodder pitched toward networks to boost their rating. I don't know. I mean, having Joe Hill sign off on it is good, especially considering that he's been picking up so much steam with Nosferatu and Lock and Key. But
Yeah.
man, I really hate to
I,
see
I mean,
comics used as scripts for TV shows. If that makes sense.
yeah, and that's kind of really shows the state of the industry. Whereas if we didn't have everything getting a series or a movie or whatever, we would see like, hey, Joe Hill, who wrote Lock and Key that we love, is getting more stories from DC. That's fantastic. But with the current climate we're in, we're suspicious about it. We assume there's ulterior motives. We can't just like go along with it and be excited. I
Right.
think that kind of really speaks to what's going on right now, industry wise.
Yeah. So, I, and I've said that before about other things, like the topics of racism and the topics of race baiting and things like that. You have to always kind of step back and question whether this is something that's on the nose or whether it was just kind of read into. But for me, these
Right.
these changes in this climate with, you know, I put out a post on Twitter about being worried about Dark Horse because they're losing so many properties right now, and
Yeah.
I can't think that that's anything besides people just watching the money roll down the drain because Dark Horse hasn't made a big thump in a long time. I mean, they're still trucking, but I mean, Asaki Yojimbo, that was over 20 years of comics, if I'm not mistaken. It was well over a decade. Um, and it just moves over to IDW for no reason. Like, I'm not in Stan Sakai's head, but to me that feels like something jumping off of a sinking ship. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Then you also have the Buffyverse. Like we all
Yeah.
know why Star Wars isn't a Dark Horse anymore because Disney owns Star Wars and Disney owns Marvel. So it makes sense to move the Star Wars comics to Marvel. But it
Yeah,
doesn't make. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, there's I would agree with your assessment of Dark Horse at the moment.
Yeah, and Dark Horse has always been one of the big four. I mean, they were one of the four horsemen of comics in the beginning. It was Marvel, DC, Image, and Dark Horse. That's who you knew about. Mainly because Dark Horse did fucking Star Wars comics, but it seems like ever since they lost Star Wars comics, I mean, Hellboy's kind of taken a back seat. Usagi Yojimbo moved to IDW. The Buffyverse moved over to Boom Studios, for God's sakes. And we're not seeing anything new and exciting come out of Dark Horse, and that's scary. And they're very quiet as a company. I don't see a lot of rumbling about them on the news or on Twitter or anything like that. We've had the scare of IDW going under because not really scare. I mean, I think at this point some people would take it as promising. Even though we both read IDW books this week completely on happenstance, I mean, they lost what $30 million over the course of 5 years, as far as
Which
value
is
goes.
which is just crazy.
And if you want to read more into that, I think that Umbrella guy covers it pretty well. But as far as the numbers go, it's not a good look. It's not a promising thing.
Yeah,
And now DC stepping in and they're changing all this stuff over. It feels like the mainstream comic industry, as we knew it, will never be back. I have good reason to be excited about this as far as some of these stories. Um, they could be good.
oh yeah. I mean, we both know that Joe Hill is a very, very good writer.
Well, Stephen King was a good writer too.
Yeah.
Now he spends all day like shit posting about Trump on Twitter.
Should we reiterate Becky's joke from the last episode that we did Lock and Key on?
What's that?
The reason why Joe Hill doesn't use his father's last name?
Oh, Joe King.
Yeah, no one could take him seriously.
Joe King, Craisins. Those guys come up with so many in jokes. Let me get back to this, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, his vision and taste are unparalleled, talking about Joe Hill. You can see it in how incredible talent he's assembled here, the stories they're crafting and bringing to the next generation of horror to DC. Small aside, Vertigo was pretty much the only place you had any kind of quote unquote horror on DC, and it was more sci fi suspense than anything. DC hasn't dipped its toes in horror comics in a very long time that I can tell. So it's really interesting that it's so important for him to do it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I find the whole thing weird, but I want to read it. What the hell are you doing, Hollywood Reporter? Sorry. The page just like reloaded out of nowhere.
Yeah, well.
Sorry, let me scroll back to where we were at. Okay.
Hill House Comics launches October 30th with the first issue of Basket Full of Heads by Hill and Leomax, followed by the Lolo Woods, the Dollhouse Family, Daphne Byrne, and Plunge. DC's official descriptions of each series are below, which I'm not going to read. Be sure to check them out if you're interested. For more information about the imprint will be revealed at a panel at San Diego Comic-Con with both Hill and Doyle in attendance. July 19th, which, 2-3 weeks from now? About 3 weeks. At 4:15 in room 6DE. So you can go ask them yourself.
And you should.
Yes, and report back here to the Gospel of Comics for us.
Exactly.
Runaway toddler.
I hear.
She's gonna be famous one day. She's determined.
It wouldn't be an episode of the Gospel of Comics without one of the little chapels making noise in the background.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. They all have to be. They all have to be internet things. So, again, that's potentially very exciting, but at the same time, it's also kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Just as as a comics guy, I worry.
Yeah, I'm tentatively excited just because I like Joe Hill's writing so much.
Right. As long as I don't know, as long as it stays true to him, as long as it's not something that it
he
just
doesn't
becomes
have like a
manufactured
committee.
garbage.
Yeah, he doesn't have a committee looking over his shoulder like, oh, make sure you put this in there, make sure you do that.
Right.
As long as it's the weird, crazy Joe Hill we're used to from Lock and Key, I'll be happy with it.
Right. Now, we have one more article that we should cover.
I don't want to read this one.
Yeah, I didn't want to read it either.
It's gonna make me mad.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering they admit that it's biased in the very beginning of the article.
Yeah, I haven't even read it yet. I can just assume what it's gonna say.
So, everyone here, and I apologize for bringing up the politics. I haven't fired Ayrton. You might miss it this time. He's been doing pretty good so far. I'm talking to Becky in the chat, but
I figured
we don't really like to bring up the politics too much, but I saw this and I just couldn't pass it up because I just knew it was going to be a shit show from the very beginning, and just the article itself is just way too good. So you'll see what I mean. The Mueller report may be turned into a comic book.
Wait 1 second.
Okay.
Let me go get and load my gun.
Okay. So.
All right, I'm good.
Okay. All right. The Mueller report may be turned into a comic book. Maybe now people will read it. San Diego-based publisher is planning to turn the nearly 450-page document into a graphic novel half the size, hoping the American public might find comic book easier to read. Spoiler alert, it doesn't end with the president being exonerated. So, already, within the first sentence, we're being told that this, or within the first couple of sentences, we're being told that this will not be an unbiased reading. This really is the easiest way to get people to actually read it. IDW publishing editor Justin L. Singer said to HuffPost. Let's just talk about this.
Do we have to?
I mean, not for long.
Okay.
But man, I wish my kids wouldn't decide to raise hell every time I do a show. It breaks my heart.
Now, okay, let's start with Trump Space Force was an amazing comic.
Yeah.
It was hilarious from start to finish.
It was.
But what's the point of interjecting these types of politics in comic books? Like Spider-Man meeting Obama, the damn Ocasio Santa Pinta Gordita Crunch Cortez comics. Like, why?
Did you just call her Gordita Gordita Crunch Cortez?
Yes, I did.
That's fantastic. That's why I haven't fired him, Becky.
Why? Like, I need to know. I don't care. Like, does anybody? Okay, yes, I'm sure the SJW, like, quote unquote comic readers chew that shit up, but Like, does the core base of comic fans really want to read this?
I don't think so. But here's my take on that. I am in the Ethan Van Sciver camp of comics should be apolitical.
I
Um,
agree with that.
I am in the camp that comics should be apolitical. I am in the camp that if they are political, they should be blatantly political, so that people that disagree with them don't even have to know about it. Um, but I think that blatantly coming out and putting your bias on factual information, or at least something that's already put out, like if you're going to take a 450 page document and you're already saying we're going to make it something people want to read, like a comic book, that's fine. It'd be a very boring comic book, but it could be interesting to, interesting to look through. Now,
Oh, please don't.
then they say we're gonna cut it in half, and I'm like, okay, so you're just making it more digestible by taking out all the beginning, essentially, like in the Bible. um, that's fine, I guess, but make sure all the key information's there. Oh, and by the way, Trump's not going to end up being exonerated in this book. Like, okay, now wait a goddamn minute. Like, it seems to me that these kind of things are just something that you don't, like, why would you do this? Um, People that aren't going to read the Mueller report and are going to read this, if there's a bias on it, then there's less of a chance that somebody reading this is going to walk away and be able to remain unbiased about the situation.
Right. I mean, it's pandering, right? Just to make money.
Well, it would be if SJWs had money to spend on things.
Okay, so they're gonna scrape up their barista tips and save to buy it when it comes out.
No, if that was the case, I think the anti-comic skate book would have done better. Deadbeats.
Okay, fair.
I don't think they broke 35K.
See, but this sticks it to the Orange Man, because the Orange Man bad.
Right. Absolutely. That is the true fact of the matter. Let's finish this up.
Okay.
The illustrated version of the special counsel's findings, which follow the 2-year investigation, is expected to be published in April 2020. That's more than a year after the Mueller's comprehensive report was released. Now, when does that?
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I poured myself a black and tan, half Guinness, half bleach. Anyways, continue.
Okay. All right, I respect that. I didn't tell the people what I was drinking tonight. I happened to pick up a bottle of Jameson Cask Made Stout Edition, which I had before I ever started the show and then could never find again. It is fantastic. It tastes like Irish whiskey, and it has notes of coffee and cocoa in it, just like a stout. And I'm sure it's just infused, and they're lying to me, but this is good, and I like it with ice.
And you all know when I'm back, I'm totally grabbing a bottle of that.
Right. Um, blah, 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 special counsel's finding. It happened to come out April 2020. Now, if I'm not mistaken, don't we vote like less than half a year after that?
Yeah, it's almost as if,
Are you
they're
playing this
trying
in the
to.
background?
No.
You sure? I hear
Yeah.
myself a little bit.
Weird. But it's almost as if they're trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me.
Spread propaganda?
Meddle.
Spread propaganda?
No, meddle in the election.
With propaganda.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah. And now I need to bring up, because I saw it this morning and I died laughing. Trump and Putin's press conference before their G20 meeting. Did you see that video?
No.
So,
Don't. He said don't meddle or something.
Yeah, well, a reporter shouts at them like, "Are you going to tell Russia not to meddle in the election?" And Trump looks at Putin and goes like, "Hey, don't you meddle in our election?" And Putin just starts laughing his ass off. He's like, "Don't you do it!" and like points his finger at him and
wags
and
a little bit.
Yeah, I swear to God, he does. And Putin just laughs. It was fantastic.
That is
Anyways.
pretty great. that is pretty great. Misgivings about the report have persisted, with Trump falsely repeating it found no collusion, no obstruction, complete and total exoneration. In reality, Mueller, who was silent throughout the entire investigation, concluded his report the special counsel's findings does not exonerate the president.
But he also said it doesn't incriminate him either.
Right, so where did the money go, Mueller? Where's the fucking money?
Right? Literally, the report basically says nothing.
I'm just, yeah.
This is why I stopped doing a political podcast, because I get too angry.
Oh no, I had to bring it up because you do like the politics. Mueller responded.
I do.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Mueller responded with a letter to Barr talking about the Barr complaint, whatever. AG Barr was just like, "Hey, fuck you." Democrats in Congress have stated the former FBI director should testify over his findings, though Mueller insists his testimony would not go beyond what's written in his report. The president, he said, he should not testify, and Trump's associates, including White House lawyer Don McGahn and former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks. I like the alliteration, HH.
Oh, nice. Little Stan Lee influence in that name.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I just realized HH, Hail Hitler, I disavow.
Sorry, Hicks. We got to disavow you.
Yeah. You're a Nazi, obviously. HH, definite Nazi. Nazis in Trump's administration confirmed, everybody. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure that she's seen Kyle too.
Absolutely, he's about yay tall.
Yeah.
Have resisted cooperating with congressional investigators. That was the Nazi Hope Hicks and the lawyer, scumbag Don McGahn. A lot of lawyers are scumbags. Nick Rekieta said so.
Yeah.
Multiple Democratic lawmakers and one Republican have pushed to impeach the president because they didn't find anything wrong that he did in Russia. We got to get rid of him.
No, I just need to point out.
Do you?
So, Clinton gets impeached for jizzing on some chick's dress,
and then finishes his
term in the Oval Office.
Don't forget, he finished his term.
I'm aware.
Okay.
And then Trump basically doesn't want to go to war with Russia and wants to find peace with Putin and be friends. And suddenly we need to impeach that.
Just for Becky Ayrton, just for her, one thing.
Yeah.
You fired.
Huh. I'll take that one.
But anyway, no, continue.
Oh, that was it. Like, I never got that from the start of the election. I wasn't a huge Trump supporter during the election. I always vote third party.
Yeah.
But like, they were literally like, Hillary was basically saying like, no, let's like go full on nuclear war with Russia, and Trump's going like, how about we don't? And people were mad about that.
Yeah.
Like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
How much cocaine are you snorting right now?
All of it.
Like, anyways.
100% of the cocaine. So that's about it for this week in the news, folks. I'm not going to read any more of that trash fire of anything. If you see the Mueller report in comic format, just don't. Just don't. So I don't know. Like, if they would have put it out, like I said, if it would have been impartial, if you wouldn't have a company coming out and saying, "No, he's guilty. We just don't know why yet. We haven't figured out why, but he is. We just know it. We hate him
he
so
did.
much. He's got to be wrong."
He's a playboy and he banged a porn star. And
Doesn't he have like billions of dollars? Isn't that what you do with that kind of money?
right. I mean, that made me like him a little bit more, right?
It should. Absolutely.
Okay. Just making sure I wasn't alone there.
Yeah, you're not wrong. If he keeps up with this war in Iran shit, though, he's fucked. Like, if he doesn't actually go to war, like, I've heard people say that because he's the Republican president, that there's no way he'd lose re-election if we went to war. And I really hope that's not his play. Like, if that's his play, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. I don't think anybody wants, besides Washington.
Or Israel.
Average people, well, didn't
Israel,
I say Washington?
Israel's like, hey, we got the truck loaded up and everything. Y'all ready to go?
Didn't I say Washington though?
I love the nation of Israel, by the way. They're fantastic. I was just commenting on their readiness.
Matzo ball soup is great.
I was just commenting on their readiness to go to battle with the evil Iranians.
Yeah. Now, matzo ball soup would taste much better if they added some bacon to it. Just saying.
You're not supposed to add bacon to it?
That's what I've been told by some dude in one of the funny little hats.
I disavow that guy. Anyway, you ready to do this? You ready to quit fucking around?
Yeah, my bleach is gone. So
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to read this Mueller report comic. That's pretty much my final thought on it. What comic I did want to read this week though? Be this one here. be Transformers Ghostbusters #1, Ghost of Cybertron Part 1. All the ones. There's like 8 ones on the cover.
I only see 2 on my issue.
Shh. You don't have the variant cover then.
I do have the variant cover. Unfortunately, that's the only one they had. Cover B.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I really didn't want to buy a variant cover, but I mean, it is cool. It has the 4 of them, like, chilling on the who we'll be introduced to, the new Transformer,
right.
Autobot.
Right. Go ahead and give his name.
Electron.
So let me just try something here.
Uh-oh. We're doing it live.
Testing something out here. Oh, nope, doesn't work. Okay. God damn it. So anyway, go ahead. This is the book you picked to read, right? This is what you wanted to do.
Of course it was.
Right. Why did you want to do
that?
This?
Shouldn't surprise anybody at this point.
Is it just because of the names on the cover there?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. you judged this book by its cover, did you?
No, by the title.
Okay. Which is on the cover, so.
It is on the cover, but it wasn't the whole cover. It was just the title.
All right.
But the cover is pretty fantastic.
So this is Transformers, Ghostbusters, Ghost of Cybertron Part 1, written by Eric Burnham, art by Dan Showing, colors by Luis Antonio Delgado, and letters by Tom B. Long. Fuck the editors. They probably fucked up somewhere anyway.
Why is the assistant editor listed on here? Don't they just, like, get the editor coffee?
This is IDW. This is
Yeah, don't they just get the editor copy?
no. I'm saying I don't think they want to get sued, man. They don't want to get me too'd.
True.
Somebody's gonna have grabbed her breast if she's not credited.
True. Calm down, Megan Brown.
I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. But I'm really not sorry. It was kind of funny.
It was a little bit.
So, start off on what? Cybertron? I mean, you're telling us.
That is correct.
You picked this book. You gotta fucking do it.
Yeah, so it starts out with a dramatic narration, which I'll read the opening text box.
Do it in your ASMR voice.
The planet Cybertron has been in the grips of civil war for as long as its population can remember. How was that?
That was great. You have to do the whole show like that.
That would be exhausting.
Uh,
But basically, it gives us the whole, Autobots versus Decepticons, blah, 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 blah.
Come on, baby. You know you want to do it like that. That's the best way.
See,
the ASMR way. You got to get really close up on the mic and just tell the people how it is, baby.
Are we running like a sex advice hotline now, like Dr. Roof?
That's 1-900 Gospel of Comics. Anyway.
Well, that derailed. Where am I?
Sorry, chat. I'm sorry for subjecting chat to
that. See, now Cartoon and Becky have partials. The whole show has just gone to hell now.
Pretty sure we have like 12 dislikes and we haven't topped 4 viewers yet.
I'm scared. I'm scared to leave this show for 3 episodes.
Oh man, yeah, we're gonna be banned. We're gonna be the building's gonna be on fire. There's gonna be a family of Syrian refugees huddled in the corner under a blanket. DLive.tv.
It's gonna be insane.
Bitwave.tv/Gospel of Comics. Pornhub.com/Gospel of Comics.
See, now that ASMR voice would work well on that.
We probably get better views over there. Be a little more lenient with the titling.
We could show some cheesecake issues.
Oh, yeah. Man.
Seriously, anyway. I have no idea where I'm at now.
Yeah, good.
What do you have pulled up on screen? Let me see. Okay, that's where you have. All right. Yeah. So we basically have the Autobots leave, and then a portal opens, and what would be wow, I'm blanking on the name of the main villain from Ghostbusters. I feel like a communist right now.
You are a communist.
Well, in this, she calls herself the Traveler, has come. Then there's some back and forth. Starscream wants to jump in and start kicking ass, and Megatron's like, hey, hold up. I'll deal with this. And then what's fantastic is she has the robot version of the demon dog things attack. And probably my favorite part is Megatron face to face. Tell me why you have come to my world. She responds, I've come to your world to end it. Now choose. Choose what? Choose the form of your destruction.
Now,
so nice little callback to the movie.
Are you talking about the old ones, or an old one?
Well,
from Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Yes, I'm talking about the original Ghostbusters movie.
Okay. No. I'm trying to think of the name that you were. I don't
Oh, the
know.
name. It's the main villain starts with
Not
a G.
Vigo. Oh, G.
Gozer. Gozer.
Gozer. Yeah.
There we go. Calls herself the Traveler in this for some reason.
Right.
Um, so then instead of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like what Ray had envisioned in the original movie, Starscream was thinking of himself as a giant Decepticon with the heads of Megatron, Optimus Prime, and a couple other characters that I can't tell hanging by a chain around his neck.
Yeah. Good bling.
Uh, so then Cybertron was destroyed, and we jump forward to the Autobots on their arc. Uh,
Yeah.
and they're picking up a Cybertronian signal from Earth, and this is where we're introduced to the new Autobot, Ectotron.
Ectotron.
And Bumblebee kind of talks some shit to him. They go back and forth a bit, and Ectotron convinces Optimus Prime that they should send a party down to Earth to investigate the Cybertronian signal. And Optimus is like, nah, you do it. You're the scientist.
Damn it,
And
damn it,
bam,
Jim! I'm a scientist, not an explorer.
and then we get, meanwhile, in Brooklyn. So we pick up with the Ghostbusters, who have just crashed the Ecto 1 into a sinkhole.
Like you do.
Yeah, which doesn't that look very sparse for Brooklyn, by the way? I don't know if you've ever been there, but
No, I stay away from anywhere Ocasio Cortez might have ever been.
yeah, my family, my grandparents were from Brooklyn, so you know, have a lot of family in that area. Anyways, and we cut to the Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters, busting some octopus looking bastard.
Now, I wanna kind of edit my or voice my critique a little bit early in this one and just talk
Yeah,
about that for a minute. Um, I really kind of felt because I feel bad saying it, but we're literally over halfway through the book at this point.
actually, I'm right where the staples are in my hard copy.
Are you
Yeah,
on the page where they're pulling the ghost?
yep, that's right at the staple.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like that's half the book,
Yeah,
and this is about as action filled as it gets right here. This is the most action you get out of the book.
it is.
Um, just feels a little, I don't know, a little slim to me as far as the first issue goes. Like I know it's the beginning of a miniseries, but a lot of these books have this problem. Like the introductions, I feel like drag on a little bit. And I feel like these types of stories would benefit from maybe being released as a double-sized issue for the first issue, and dropping them down to
Yeah,
3 instead of 4 or 5.
I definitely agree. It was the especially the ending. I was kind of like, oh man, they're ending it here, but
Right. Well, and that's fine
but
for a comic book. Like ending at a point where you really, really wanted to continue is the main selling point for a lot of like sequential storytelling, I think.
true.
But
And I get what you're saying, but the fact that once I got to that ending page, I was like, oh man, you got to give it at least a little credit. At least I was drawn into this. I'm definitely going to be buying the whole series as it comes out because as everybody who watches this program regularly knows by this point, the more ridiculous a story is, the more likely I am to enjoy it.
You know, most channels do like ceremonial streams when they hit certain milestones on the channel, and we probably will too. But you know what we're gonna have to do, right?
Uh-oh.
We're gonna have to do a special stream when you have to buy your first long box.
You know, I'm getting pretty damn close. My shelf is like basically out of room.
Well, you still only need a short box right now, probably. If
That's
you go,
possible.
if you buy a long box right now, you're gonna have to deal with either laying your comics down or having to deal with putting something in there to hold them up.
True, and I do have a lot of trades and
Yeah, you don't want to put those in a box.
and stuff like that. So yeah, single issues, yeah,
Yeah, so
it'll still be a while.
I like to at least have one or two short boxes around to put comics that I need to sort in, so that I don't have to immediately dig through all of the long boxes.
Right.
God, I'm sure this is the most exciting thing that anybody in the chat has ever listened to, but it's honest to God advice. Like I like having one around that you don't have to keep alphabetized, that you can just keep what you're just got done reading or whatever in.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit of room just to kind of build out.
Well, I'll even turn the camera on.
Oh shit.
And I mean, it's not like that's that big a deal. There's plenty of videos with my face in it, but I'll even sit there and like, you know, we'll make it a whole thing, like full video and everything.
Oh man, that means I'm gonna have to do one of mine one day, but that'll be like a 24-hour stream. Maybe on the 24-hour stream, I'll rig some kind of setup of. That'll be at monetization. If we ever get monetization, or at least get to the qualifications for monetization, I'll do the 24-hour stream. Anyway, let's wrap this review up.
Yeah. So, well, there's one little aside where, so, Ectotron decides to become the Ecto-1, which I knew immediately that was going to be the case, but I was still so excited for it.
Right. You see that right at the top of the page with the octopus monster.
Yeah. So then he goes and parks in the grass, and a couple of cops, which I love this little bit, go to write them a ticket, and one cop's like, "Nah, come on, man, they saved the world." And he's like, "Hey, I got a job to do. Just because they saved the world doesn't mean they can park illegally." And then Ectotron blasts the ticket he's about to put on the windshield out of the cop's hand. He's like, well, maybe I could let it slide since they saved the world.
Right. Right.
So then Egon picks up another apparition on his scanner, and it turns out to be a Transformers.
A ghost.
A Transformers. A Transformer ghost.
That's Jesus. Like the plural of Lego is Lego.
Right. So they bust him pretty quickly. I was actually kind of disappointed about that. Right. Like I wanted more. I wanted the action bit with like the octopus to be with this ghost.
Right.
You know,
this ghost helped beat the shit out of that ghost because their equipment's malfunctioning, and they're like, "Wait, let's hear him out," kind of thing. But no, they immediately just trap him or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was part of my complaint that I was getting at earlier. Like, that could have been a great piece of action that they could have merged together and achieved the same thing in the grand scheme of things.
Right. I mean, I would have done it, not even put that octopus ghost creature in there and just have them tracking the same like spectral spirit that Ectotron is tracking as the Cybertron signal, and have them kind of like run into each other.
Yeah, that would have worked too.
That's how I would have done it. But you know, I'm not a writer. So, anyways, they do a little discussion thing, typical kind of back and forth dialogue that you would expect from Ghostbusters, and then I'm just I just always want to call him Ernie Hudson, and that's what I'm going with. I He says, "So what's an Autobot?" And then you see the shadow of Ectotron behind him, and he says, "Actually, to answer that is me." And we have ending with a nice. Actually, it's actually a pretty nice 2-page, nice big spread of him roboted out, and the four of them kind of standing there. You have Egon's just kind of standing there, like just examining him as you would expect, and Ray's in the front, like kind of like what the hell. And I'm assuming Ernie Hudson has peed his pants. Just in my head, that's what I would expect out of that character.
Well, I hate that the Ghostbusters symbol isn't more prominent on this form of him.
Yeah, I'm hoping in the next issue it'll be like front and center on his chest or something.
Well, I mean, you can already see he's that car because you can see the sidebars of that car.
Yeah,
But
but
whatever.
and I imagine Finkman trying to figure out a way to monetize this to make money.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right?
mean, yeah. I mean, it was interesting. It wasn't my favorite thing that I read this week. Obviously, we're about to talk about my favorite thing that I read this week, and I have my initial
I will have
complaint.
to. I
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say real quick, not the best. It was entertaining, had enough callbacks to the original movie, to if you're a fan of the movie to keep you engaged,
Right.
but it had enough and ended at a point where I want to read the second issue. I want to see, like, I can imagine in my head kind of the dialogue back and forth between them and this alien robot sentient robot, and in my head that's really funny. So I definitely want to read the second issue and see if it gets any better.
Right. Well, I don't think it was bad. I just, like I said, I think that it was just a little bit too little.
Yeah, like 3 out of 5 stars, maybe 3.5.
Yeah. Now I read, like I said earlier, I read a lot of comics every week for this show, just to make sure that I know what I'm going to be talking about. Um, I read another team up book from this week, The Crow Hack Slash. Having never read Hack Slash before, I was a little surprised, I guess, a little taken aback. Um,
Like halfway through the show on me.
what now? I can't hear you. I think I've lost my co-host, ladies and gentlemen. It would not be the Gospel of Comics without some technical issues. Um, I'm just gonna see if he comes back. I think Skype just shit out, so we're just gonna we're just gonna load that back up and see what's going on. We're gonna open Skype up here. I was talking about Hack Slash the Crow though. It's another team up book, and again, I've never really read Hack Slash. Never something that's appealed to me. But having read this issue, I think it was okay. Um, I was interested in it, but it wasn't that great. It was a little bit just blah. Um, Ayrton still seems to be unavailable. We're gonna see if he'll call back in a minute. If not, I'm gonna have to try and call him back. The first time we've had something like this happen on air, though, like this to call completely go away for this amount of time. Um, The Crow is introduced in Hack Slash right at the very end. So, oh, he's back. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. Give me 1 minute to unmute him. There we go. Say
I
something.
don't know. Can you hear me? Am I
Yeah,
coming through?
yeah, you're coming through fine. I just wanted to make
I
sure the
don't.
desktop audio was good. I was just rambling on about
All
Hack
right.
Slash the Crow while you were gone, just trying to trying to make sure that I could do this. A little concerned I was about to have to
Yeah,
go
I've
through
no.
this review by myself.
Yeah, I have no idea what the hell just happened.
I told you Skype hates
Like,
you, probably because of some
apparently,
sin in
because
your
it's like
life.
I mean, I think I downloaded Skype while driving through an Indian burial ground.
Probably.
So
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, as soon as you mention it, you start roboting again. That's fantastic.
oh, lovely.
But I was just talking about some of the other books that I had read this week. I read Wolverine Exit Wounds. Um,
I
I'm
read that one.
I I wasn't impressed.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
I mean, it just
Like every beat I saw coming.
yeah, and they
I
it was
did
just
like. I did like though. There was one scene I liked
yeah,
when he started cooking the noodles and he just put the apron on over his leather jacket and cowboy hat.
yes, yes, that was pretty good.
That did make me. That did make me laugh
Yeah, that was
because
probably the
he
best
would. I
short.
mean, that's in character.
That was probably the best short in the entire book.
Yeah. But like that ending bit with the whole family lineage thing, totally saw that coming.
Well, let's just talk about the final the
Anyways,
art in the final story. That was rough. I mean, that was real bad. Um, I don't know. Spider-Man Annual wasn't really that good. It was okay. It was a Spider-Ham story, but it felt empty. Um,
yeah, I almost bought that for my nephew because I was going over their place after I went to the comic book store. But I was like, I don't know. He might still be too young.
no,
He's
it
turning
would have been.
4 in September. So
Well, he nah. I don't think he would have enjoyed it.
yeah,
Uh, but I mean, really, out of everything that I read this week, I think I picked up like 7 or 8 books. Yeah, Crow Hack Slash Horror Comics #1. I did pick up Killer Groove #2. Haven't read that yet, and
okay.
I'll be
It's
reading Steel
it
Cage
it has a
tomorrow.
yeah. Killer Groove issue 2.
Yeah,
Uh, it does a very very good job of building on the characters.
if
There
you want to talk
there's a
about it,
little
if you want to talk about it for a minute, don't worry about like spoiling anything for me. I'm still gonna read it.
yeah. I mean it basically just kind of goes more in depth into uh, kind of like Johnny's psyche.
Right,
He tries to write more songs and then can't really. So he goes out and does some more. He does another job basically.
right.
Gives him more inspiration. He ends up actually getting a record label to sign him, and then proceeds to do a line of coke with the record label executive on his desk.
Nice, nice. Very 80s of him.
um, Very 80s of him. But then it also follows the Private Eye. I don't know. Remember the little girl from the first issue? How she's looking
Yeah,
for her dad,
right. Yeah,
and she actually goes to this hippie organization that she had gotten the name of, and actually finds out what happens to her dad, to the little girl's dad. And it turns out he died in a demonstration gone wrong.
Okay.
basically, and they never reported
Don't
it to the
don't
police. And then,
don't go through the whole thing, but yeah. So
yeah, and that old man at the beginning, we find out is the Private Eye's uncle, and
yeah.
there's some kind of backstory between them, and there's some really interesting kind of. I know we said keep comics apolitical earlier, but there's some interesting political commentary between the two of them,
Well,
because
the the
he was a refugee from Cuba
the
during the
undertone
Castro regime.
the undertone of political commentary and the blatant political bias are two different things in comics.
True.
There's not a us versus them bias in Captain America punching out Adolf Hitler. If you were an American, you hated Adolf Hitler. Um, the calling an American a Nazi
American.
is what? What was that?
I said not every American.
Well, I think most of them. Let's not be communist here, but I think
Hey,
most
it's
Americans
National
were united.
Socialism.
Look, I think most Americans at the time were pretty much anti-Hitler. Um,
True.
Nowadays, they want to call other Americans Nazis, so there's a difference between those two sets of politics. But anyway, continue. It was a good issue.
Yeah, yeah. Not so heavy in story, but very, very heavy in kind of character development, which I really liked.
Okay, so we'll.
So, and as these keep coming out, I'll keep kind of talking about them and give you my thoughts on the issues as they come out, because
I liked
I'm
them.
enjoying this quite a bit.
I'm probably going to do the same thing with this book here that we're going to be looking
This was a fun one.
at. I almost passed this book up based on the cover, and there should be shame on me for that.
See, I loved the cover. I almost bought it because of the cover.
Um, well, I'm not a buy a book by the cover kind of guy, but just the character on the cover, I didn't really know what to take it for, and it
Yeah,
seemed a little childish. It seemed almost like for a kid. And I'm not saying this isn't an all ages comic, but there are some really complex themes here that I really enjoyed the way they were brought up. There's a lot of minutia to this comic. This is a rare example of something that drew me in from the first page, and when I saw that it was to be continued, I was actually a little bit pissed off. I was a little bit mad by the time I got done with it because there wasn't more of it right here, right now. And there's only a few books that do that to me, and this is one of them. And this is a new book. This is coming out from IDW, a company that I've already criticized. So there is no bias here. If it's a good book, it's a good book. I don't. I
true.
don't. I
We
don't.
we've I think we've criticized just about every publisher except Alterna.
Yeah, but Peter Smeddy's just so fucking cool, man.
I know. I'm just saying.
We haven't criticized All Cap Comics. That's Ethan Van Sciver's imprint, and he's like late on a
Okay.
deadline or something.
All right. All the main publishers we've criticized
I
at
think
some
fairly.
point or another.
I think fairly.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, written by David Boer, David and Boer. I don't know. Drew Zucker is the art. Colors by Vittorio Astone. Letters by Darren Bennett and edited by Dave Marriott. Um, this is probably the best comic I've read this year. Um, I would put it on that. No offense to any other comic. I've read some great comics this year, but this is the first comic that I've read this year that I loved as much as I loved this. It could go to complete shit. I'm not taking that away. But as far as new comics that have come out this year, and as much as I loved Unit 44, and as much as I loved some of the other alternate books, as much as I loved some of the Dynamite books and some of the multitude of comics that we've read just over the last couple of months, since we've started this show, hands down the best comic I've read that came out this year.
Let's dive in.
Yeah. So we start off, and we're given a history of sorts. It's an introduction that is perfectly executed. We're introduced to the world, we're introduced to the population, and then we're introduced to the character. And just the amount of detail in these pages, the way it's colored. A lot of times people over texture when they use textures. This is not that case. The art in this book is stunning. It matches itself, and it it just has a life of its own once you get into it. Every minor detail needs to be taken into consideration. The small creatures, the minor characters in the background, their body language, their facial expressions, all of that plays into this story. We're
Well,
introduced to
that even the
Go ahead.
one thing, because sometimes when you have creatures that are kind of homogenous like these beings are, it's kind of hard to tell them apart, but the artist did an amazing job with the little details of distinguishing them,
Right.
which I really enjoyed.
We're introduced to a slave race of people who are forbidden to have names, forbidden to care about one another, forbidden to love. And they're a slave race of people and lorded over. But we find out that their hearts are taken out and they're replaced with clocks. And once their time is up, it's up. So the page I have up now is just to kind of show an example of how different they make these characters like from one another, like with the use of eye patches and size and minor changes in clothing, the eye shape, the eye color, the minor details, the height differences. It all plays into it. They seem like little tiny robots, but one interesting thing about this book is the first words in this book aren't about this world. They're about a fairy tale or, an antidote in this world. Antidote, whatever. Antidote.
Anecdote.
Sure. But it's a story about a knight who went off to save a princess in the tallest tower of the tallest the tallest castle on the tallest mountain. And there's no ending to it because it's been forgotten by this race of people. They eventually find out that this one character named Canto, hence the title of the book, has a name. And they punish the girl that claims to have given him his name. The female automatonic, clock-hearted, small creature. But the dialogue in this book and the narration in this book and the art in this book, I was in love by this point. So I was already invested in this character that didn't even have a name. I was upset that she was hurt, and they worked on her clock, and they figured that she was going to die and be thrown in the furnace. But the doctor tells Canto that there's one way to save her, to go find her heart and have it replaced. Um, there are these creatures in this book, uh, Malanax or something of that nature. Very strange name, but
Malarex.
yes. And they encounter one of these, and this is another example. I'm just going to bring up both instances of these creatures, and we'll go backwards. But this is another instance of being able to differentiate characters of the same race in this book. We had the exchange from Canto and one of the other members of this tribe, and they go into the forest to bury someone, and in the process of doing so, they're confronted by a Malarex who has one eye and part of his ear missing and is very, very old. And later on in the story, while Canto is traveling through the woods alone, he encounters a few Malarex that are hunting and just has to avoid them because they would totally eat him, where everyone that can recognize this older one knows that he doesn't like the taste of their species or whatever, so he won't even bother with them. Just that part of the story alone, just that little small finite detail tells me that this person has a lot to offer with this storytelling.
Oh yeah.
But the initial issue starts like I said with the overlording race, these cow people, I guess, find out that Kanto has a bag of golden stones and has been given a name. So the one that confesses to giving him a name is this girl wrapped in this blue shawl. And they attack her and damage her clock. And you get this beautiful full page art. Just everything about this is to be loved. Um, every bit of minor detail, every bit of artwork, every bit of dialogue, it's emotional, it's interesting, it's intriguing, it's beautifully drawn. I mean, the colors are just amazing and fantastic, and I I don't know. It's hard to explain how great this is as a comic without completely spoiling it. But
Now, one thing I really liked was how they showed after the female of this race was injured when she was on the operating table or whatever you want to call it,
right,
and Kento was talking to her, how they showed the exchange of that.
the transition,
That was
yes.
that was
I'll pull a
really
page of that
cool.
up. Yeah, that
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
I enjoyed it as well. It again, it's one of those things that thematically fits, but someone who is a harsh critic can look at and say, "Well, that's just lazy. You just didn't want to draw the pages." And I'm like, "No, that's intentional. That there's a reason that is like that because maybe these creatures without hearts don't have the wherewithal to experience anything, and this is what their memories feel like. This is what it feels like when they're not themselves. They just don't have imagination and creativity. This is what they muster up. I don't know. It seemed personal. It seems intimate almost.
Yeah,
Just the slight color changes in the text, not even like text boxes or bubbles or anything like that. Just a Gaussian blur, basically, in Photoshop. But it works. So, like I said, eventually Kanto is told that the only way that he can save his friend is by going into the forest and beyond the forest to talk to a hermit to find out where the overlords keep the slaves' hearts. And he does so, and you're left with this final scene. And it'll take me a minute to get pulled up, but oh no, it won't. There we go.
Yeah, that final shot, that was amazing.
Yeah. And you can see where he's left the only stone that the slavers didn't steal from him on the chest, and it looks like a little heart, but he left it on the chest of his friend that he went to find her heart. And just this final shot, like I said, you get a feel for the terrain, the landscape, the setting, all of that. And you see this shot of Canto just getting ready to venture out on this epic adventure by himself to save his friend. Um, and you're going to uncover the reason why his race can't have a heart. Ayrton, we can't hear you. You're roboting. You're awful for that.
Of course.
I'm
How's
gonna
that?
I'm gonna mute the desktop audio real quick and let you talk to me where nobody else can hear it. All right, go ahead. Let's see what you got. It's all right. All right, I'm gonna unmute you now. Yeah, I'm gonna unmute you now.
Okay.
You're unmuted. You're back on
Okay.
live. Let's wait for your robot again. Go ahead
Of
and say
course.
everything that we didn't hear.
All right. So looking at this ending shot, which is gorgeous, the little details you see, like the cloak sash things that they wear, like some of them are hooked on, like stuck on whatever the floating or whatever those are,
Called it.
kind of off in the distance. Of course.
But no, like you said, I like the floating islands too. Like, what's that all about? Are those normal? Is that something by magic? Whatever. We know that they constantly work to feed a furnace that eats up their dead bodies and whatnot. And you have to sneak your friends out to give them a proper burial because they'll just be fed into a furnace. This kid offered his own clock. He told the doctor to take his clock out and put it in his friend to save her. And the doctor was like, we can't do that. Your clock is your clock. But the fact that this character's already made the ultimate sacrifice or tried to, it just didn't work. So this is this is one of those feel good heroes that might just be shit on by the end of the story, and I don't want that to happen. But I'm in on this, like you are on Killer Brood. Like this, I'm all in on this.
Yeah, this was a fantastic story. I loved it. I wish I would have grabbed the physical copy instead of having to read it digitally.
Yeah. Um. Well, they didn't order it into my shop, so
Mm.
yeah, online's the only place you can
And
get it. But
what one thing that I kind of like, that ending card, if you will. It says an all ages fable inspired by Wizard of Oz and Dante's Inferno.
yeah,
That kind of grabbed my attention. Those two inspirations. That's an interesting blend
well,
of.
one thing that I can say, like I critiqued this in the earlier segment when we were talking about the news, but this was done well. Like they gave you something to latch you in and make you care about these characters, and then at the end of the story they say yes, it was inspired by these two stories, but it's its own thing. And I
Yeah,
agree every little bit of what they say at the very end. Pure part fantasy, part adventure, all heart. Like I loved every little bit of this. There is nothing about this comic book that I am not 100% all in on.
yeah, it was definitely a fantastic story.
So that is pretty much it for the number ones that we looked through this week. Any other minor things you want to touch on before we start to wrap it up? I mean, we got about 15 minutes. We can talk about something else. Anything grab your attention this week? I know you've been busy with vacation.
Yeah, I mean, I did see a news article that was kind of interesting.
Oh, well, why don't you just link that over and I'll pull it up.
I'll have to find the link. Why I do that, I'll give you the quick overview.
Okay.
So it was weird. Doesn't really have anything to do with comics, but it was still strange. So in my hometown, apparently somebody paid someone to kill a cow out in the pasture using only 2 small porcelain figures. And the local police have said that is the first known case of a knick-knack paddywhack.
Oh my fucking god. Fuck you. You're fired.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to be gone for a week and a half. I have to go out with a bang.
Or a whimper. I'm gonna fucking meet you wherever you go and just pay somebody to beat the shit out of you with 2 small porcelain figures.
Hey, that one made you laugh. You got to give me that.
I have a different variation of that involving a loan in the bank to a dog with a priceless porcelain figure and a bank teller named Patty. It's a knick-knack paddywhack. Give the dog a loan. But anyway, no, seriously, nothing about the old comic book industry really strike your fancy.
No, I was super bummed that my shop was all out of Samurai Grandpa, though, when I went in there.
Doing a little bit of digging once I realized that neither one of our shops got that in. That was a Comicsgate book. So that tells me that's actually really good you brought that up, because that actually does bring me something to talk about. Go ahead and finish your thought before I go off. Yeah, that was. Yeah. Well, it wasn't necessarily a Comicsgate book. Let me take that back. Let me roll that back. I apologize to any Comicsgate
I'll finish my thought real quick.
It is a crowd-funded book.
Oh, okay.
Now continue.
Yeah, because it's weird, because I get an email list every Monday of what's coming out new.
No.
I saw that.
It was a crowd-funded book that went to publishing.
Well, it's only what's new that's coming into this particular chain of stores in my area.
Oh, I'm sure it got bought out.
So
once it came in there, because they were ordering it for a set number of people, and then when somebody came in and they saw a number 1 on the shelf, they probably picked it up.
Yeah, and man, I was so excited to grab that one. It sounded amazing, and I was so bummed. But the weird thing about it is I actually went early because I had some personal stuff I had to do later in the day. And even then, it was still bought out when I got there, I don't know, maybe around noon, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, my shop didn't order it, and that's the point that I wanted to talk about, because these crowdfunded books, you guys, I think it's great and a genius thing to send them to publishing. I think that if you do that, you need to do a better job of advertising it. Everyone needs to know, and everyone needs to request your book. I mean, we need to get these books in stores. I love the fact that we can crowdfund a book by ordering a first edition copy that nobody else can get. But I think you need to put them in comic shops too, and I think people need to be talking about them. I want Monster MD on the shelf at my store. I want Downcast on the shelf at my store. You know, I want Fighting Fortress or Flying Fortress on the shelf at my store. Cyber Frog on the shelf at my store.
Right.
You know, and I have a hard time believing that's going to happen because people don't know how to order comics anymore because fucking Diamond. Um, all of these fucking crowdfunded books that are amazing. I want Grom on my fucking shelf at the store. You know, we got radically radioactive or radically reactive rearranged rodents or whatever. I don't even remember the goddamn
Oh,
name of it.
radically rearranged Ronin ragdolls.
Ronin Ragdolls, right? Um, you know, that's on the shelf at my store. But that was a Kevin Eastman book, and I have a feeling that someone ordered it and just never picked it up.
Yeah, I got the last copy when I went and picked that up, which
Right.
I'm glad I did.
Yeah. But my store wouldn't have known to order that unless somebody had asked for it. So.
Yeah, man, I wish I would have known that was a crowdfunded book, because I definitely would have had them order one for me and set aside, because that looked fantastic.
You may be able to get like a backstock issue from Diamond if they can still get it. But it leads me to think that, you know, Sweetcast talked about this earlier in the week, but we need a better distribution system as a whole. If you don't have that, like if you don't have distribution of your book outside of Diamond, then it's going to get buried in the smaller markets because you're not going to get that preview advertising space unless you buy it. And a lot of these guys, if they just get their crowdfunding and if they get a publisher, like I don't know how it works, but I know that I've never seen a crowdfunded book in a previews magazine like as a feature. It might have been in there,
Right.
but there's no, you know, denotation that this was an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter book that only exists and is only being brought to you by people that know and love comics. Because that would be a hell of a fucking endorsement. You know
Oh,
that
yeah.
shit that DC and Marvel just keep churning out because it sells because of the name? No, 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 no. Comic fans paid for this because comic fans want this. You should buy it. That should
Right.
be the message. I don't care
Yeah,
what
and
your
there was...
political leanings are. I don't care, you know, what you believe in. If you believe in comic books and you want apolitical books out there, I mean, we've got to endorse these people and we've got to get their books on comic shelves somehow or another.
I'm going back to the email list that I get just to see, like, if there was something on there that I missed when looking through it, if they might have mentioned something, but I don't know. Hold on a sec. Pull it up.
Well, to me, you know, independent publishers have a much better foothold in the market than the big two at this point as far as respect for the industry goes. Because when I look at
Oh, yeah.
the to read list, I don't want to read a Marvel comic or a DC comic anymore. I want to read something that was put out by somebody who loves what the fuck they're doing. And these
And who has fun new ideas.
and something that comic fans paid for that comic fans wanted exemplifies that better than anything else. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the books that I've backed, the books that all of Comic Gate has come up with and backed, the books that have been backed since Comic Gate never existed. Um, all of those are prime examples of things that people wanted that they paid for to exist. Even Deadbeats, even fucking Renfamous's 8 pages of bullshit. Enough people paid for it to make it happen, and that's fine. That's fantastic. I hope they love it, and I hope it's on a comic shelf somewhere. I hope it's on a comic shelf somewhere, and there's a big stack of them, and people go, "Who the fuck wants this?" But at the same
And
time,
it's back in $1 comic bin.
If it's a good book, I want people to buy it. I want it to sell like hotcakes. If it's apolitical, I want people to buy it and to sell it like hotcakes. I have a hard time believing that it is. But if it's good, I give it the benefit of the doubt. I'd want it out there. I'd want it on the shelf at my fucking comic shop if it's good. Because indie
Yeah.
creators need all the support they can get. Pros doing Indiegogo's that don't fulfill them, that's a problem. People not fulfilling Indiegogos and Kickstarters, that's a problem. But the people that do, I want those people to have their books on the shelves at comic stores. And
Right. Yeah. And so I pulled up the list from my local shop, and
right,
just has all it says is the summary in shops June 26th, the writer and artist, and it says Source Point Press.
right,
No indication that it was a crowdfunded book.
no. And I don't know that you can get a digital copy. I didn't see it on Comixology.
Yeah, which is a bummer because it sounded awesome.
Right. I want to read it, but we missed the funding of it. So hopefully there'll be a reissuing of it, or we can get copies somehow.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that about wraps it up.
I would say so.
I definitely appreciate you coming on and doing your thing the day before you have to get ready for vacation. Tomorrow night we may have Ayrton later on in the show, but don't count on it because he may be busy. Bullshit may occur.
It's possible.
Instead of Ayrton being the normal co-host, we will have
And I'm sorry, folks.
S.K. Barrett from the Dead Man Tone podcast filling in as the guest co-host tomorrow night. We will be talking about the history of Mad Magazine, and I've got production notes. I've got covers. I've got 550 issues of Mad Magazine covers to go through, to look at the price changes, to look at the differences in structure, to talk about the transition from a comic book to a magazine. Was it a rumor that the Comics Code Authority instilled that, which is what I previously thought was the case? Will I have to lead with my mistakes? Tune in tomorrow to find out.
Will SK say, "What up, bitches"?
Probably. I think that's how he enters everything.
Yeah.
Outside of that, next Saturday, we have Atomic Denny coming on to talk about something that we haven't figured out yet. Probably this week in comics, and I'll probably make him read something he'll hate. Tune in to hear a grumpy boomer 20-something-year-old artist who is responsible for the backdrop. Great artwork. Check his stuff out. He's done a book cover, I believe, recently that was fantastic. He did a TRR piece. He does all kind of stuff. He was working on a secret project that he's shown me that looks fantastic as well.
Oh yeah, it does.
But
Which, by the way,
yeah,
Denny, I give you a lot of shit, man, but you're awesome. And don't go stealing my bit of having your audio cut out now.
I don't know that he can promise that, and I'm pretty sure the people are used to it by now. But Sunday the 7th is a little tentative on who will be on and who will not be. But with that said, we will figure it out and make an announcement before the show. Until then, I've been your host, Church of Failure.
I have not.
He is not. Thank you again, man, for coming on, and we will see you guys next time.
Good night, everybody.